In a second-hand set of dimensions, on an astral plane that was never meant to fly, through wavering star mists, see the Grey Satuin. Drifting onwards through space, atop the shell of the world's turtle, are 4 giant elephants, upon whose broad shoulders rests the Discworld. Welcome to Dining Table Discworld. We're reading through the Discworld novels and discussing them at our dining table. Be aware there will be spoilers for the current book and others in the series.
Hello, welcome to Dining Table Discworld. I'm Dave.
I'm Kathy.
And today it is our Christmas special, where we will be talking about The Colour of Magic. But not the first book, because we've already done that. We'll be talking about The Colour of Magic TV series that was produced in 2008 by Sky One and had an all-star cast. And we're going to talk about our thoughts. So, Kathy, there's no synopsis.
No. If you want a synopsis of this, I guess listen to our Colour of Magic and Light Fantastic book episodes. Although, I mean, we were a bit new to this then, so they're not the best. And I guess take out some bits.
Yes. So yes. What was your thoughts on the TV show?
It's the first time I'd seen it, and I can see it kind of makes sense to sort of take Colour of Magic and Light Fantastic and sort of squish them together.
Yes, so we didn't say this was done in 2 hour and 40 episodes, and yes, they combined the story, which we'll go into a bit.
Well, that's why I said to listen to both of the synopsis.
Yes.
It's the first time I've seen it, but I have seen some of the other Discworld adaptations by the same people. So
this was the second one.
Was it? I thought it was the third.
No, this was the second one. So the first one was Hogfather.
Yeah.
And the third one was Going Postal.
Why have I seen those two and not this one then?
Because Hogfather, I think we had access to Sky at the time.
But then how have I seen Going Postal?
Because we went round someone's house and watched it.
Did we? I feel like I've just seen it on.
No, we went and watched it I think we went to Ian's.
Oh, okay. Sure. Yeah, so I thought it was alright. It's an approach that the graphic novel does as well. And in the introduction on our DVD version, so Terry himself says, having written one book that was mostly for people like him who'd read the same sort of things and wasn't very big on plot, he then wrote the second book to kind of create a plot. So, yeah, you can see the pushing them together made sense. Do we want to kind of go into how they've adapted it a bit more?
Well, yes, I suppose I should say. I found it all right. There was bits I liked about it. Some bits didn't like as much. It's as a TV adaptation. Let's not complain too much. It could be the watch.
Well, we haven't seen
that. So yes, I'll go into what I didn't enjoy as we go along. But yeah, it was all right. Okay, yes, it's adaptation. So as you said, it's taken the two stories and lumped them together, which makes, as you say, it makes sense. You've got you've got the Rincewind storyline, you've got the Wizard storyline. In
the books, obviously, Rincewind and Two Flowers just the Colour of Magic bit, and then the Wizard stuff's kind of in Light Fantastic. So it makes sense to see the Wizard stuff in earlier and have Rincewind as a part of the university and have his backstory be filled in simultaneously with him meeting Two Flower and leaving the city and all of that. So yeah, it kind of makes sense.
And yeah, it does make sense because otherwise it would be kind of, well, we'd be looking at Lord of the Rings, but it would be Fellowship of the Ring, not Fellowship of the Ring. It would be Return of the King, where you'd have Frodo throwing the ring into Mount Doom, and then we'd go back and see what Aragorn was up to and the fight and the big fight at the front of the gates of Mordor. It's kind of a bit strange.
Are we just reaching for Lord of the Rings because of Sean Astin?
No, but that's another one where they intersperse so in the book.
Oh, okay.
In the book,
I don't know enough about this.
No, but in the book of there's separate storylines. Mm-hmm. So you get halfway through the book, you get the resolution to one. I can't remember which way around it goes, but you get a resolution to one of the storylines, and then you go back and see what happens to the other people.
Oh.
And then you do the whole Scarring of the Sharp bit, which is why there's the joke about there being so many endings in Return of the King.
I thought the joke was because of all the DVD stuff.
Oh, well, that kind of...
That was the joke I got of it. I didn't understand the textual joke.
But,
right.
Yeah, there's in that. So,
okay.
So it makes this is not the first time you've combined two things. Otherwise your first hour and a half is basically Rincewind and Two Flower bumbling around, and then suddenly a plot comes out of nowhere, which is what happens in the books.
Well, yeah. Talking about what was taken out, I suppose a lot of the stuff that was taken out was stuff from Colour of Magic that was a bit here's a joke about this thing.
Yeah, it is less. I mean, you do get a couple of references, but it is it is less heavy on the references as far as.
Yeah, I mean, some stuff's in there, obviously, kind of bits of the journey, but the kind of
you don't get the dryad bits.
The Bell Shamrock thing is mentioned, but not actually, it's just a reference. It's not actually part of the action. The bit at the beginning with is it Fritz Lieber?
Yeah.
Characters, that's not there. So it's kind of taking, these are the bits that are actually these characters, them meeting, them going off on their travels, and how those travels affect their relationship and where they go.
Yeah.
And the bit where they obviously end up in Kroll and go off the edge of the disc, that's the core bit there. But yes, obviously interspersed with the kind of wizardy bits.
Wizard backstabbing.
Yes.
A lot of wizard backstabbing.
Yes. It also doesn't have stuff like the talking trees.
No.
But that was kind of funny bit, but again, not super kind of plot relevant. It also takes out the travelling shop as well.
Yeah, which is a bit of a shame, but they still managed to get them back to.
That and also the bit with the plane.
Oh, the bit with the plane is just.
I know the bit with the plane was the bit I remember the best.
Yeah, I think
but
that
again,
would have just been too.
They're just a bit too postmodern, take you out of the world a bit. And which is obviously the point of it, but yes, it probably looks a bit weird.
I mean, the travelling shop was just there to get them back to Ankh-Morpork.
And then they just got them to, run around on the luggage anyway.
Yeah.
Which, in fairness, is what the cover of the book suggests is happening.
Yeah. They kept in the Dragon Rider of Pern.
The Wernberg.
Bit, yes.
But they took out some of the... So that's just quite a short bit, but they took out some of the, backstory of some of the side characters.
Yeah.
But, they didn't have that hero guy. There wasn't all the stuff about Liesa and her family and what's happening with her. It was just these are the people in the Wernberg, and
it's basically just to throw Rincewind into more danger.
Yeah. But they still had that sword.
Yes, briefly. And again, it's kind of, I don't know.
Sort of funny.
Kind of, it's...
I guess they could have the, being upside down.
Yeah.
Doing a sword fight. I mean, the background male characters in that were more scantily clad than the foreground female character. So was that?
Yeah.
She's talking about scantily clad men. There's a reasonable amount of that. There's sort of a certain element of here are a load of fairly buff older gentlemen.
Yes, that does seem to be, yeah.
I mean, did you want to go into cast, or did we have more about adaptation?
I think the adaptation was okay. I mean, it kept in as much of it as it could without, any of these adaptations are going to leave out, lots of details.
I think it made sense. So yeah,
the overall, and yes, I'm sure there are your favourite bit, like the aeroplane bit.
But I wouldn't. That doesn't make sense in TV.
No, but everyone's going to have a favourite bit that they're going to have cut. But that's the nature of these things.
I mean, the funniest bit with the talking trees was a text-based joke anyway.
Well, yes, you couldn't do that. Okay, yes, we'll talk about the cast. So we might as well start with my big gripe. David Jason as Rincewind.
I mean, it sounds like he had wanted to play that part for 10 years.
Sure, but...
And he had already been involved in one where he played Albert, who, thinking about it, if you do more, Rincewind has met.
Yes.
But they didn't do more, so it's fine.
No. But he was I think he was great as Albert. I don't see Rincewind being that old. I know he's been in the university for a long time, but I don't see him being that kind of age. I always saw him more 30s.
I think I did see Rincewind as being older, but I think there's a reasonable argument, and we've discussed this, I think it might have been our first quadrant episode with timelines and stuff, that there's a reasonable argument for if Colour of Magic is and Light Fantastica quite far before some of the other books, that Rincewind could be quite young in those, and then later books he's quite a bit older, and we have various periods of time we don't know how long he's working in the university library.
No.
We don't know how long he's stuck in the dungeon dimensions.
Yeah.
So there's certainly time for him to have aged a fair bit, but yeah, I feel like Rincewind could. There's this kind of thing with wizards that they seem old. If you look at there's that guy who's in his 20s in Mort, and they keep saying old Cutwell, and he's like, I'm 22.
Yeah.
So there is. I think it's the beard. And I think also part of the thing is that, Rincewind's always been a terrible student, isn't very good. Well, if it's that old, the idea is he's just been kicking around ages, not passing any exams or studying anything. So I think it kind of makes sense, because they do specifically early on have him talk to the Arch-Chancellor, who points out that he's still level 0.
Yes, but if...
So I think it adds to the kind of patheticness of Rincewind.
True, but also if you think about, I'm doing book referencing Ponder Stibbons, well, more accurately, his mate...
Victor?
Yes,
Vincent.
from Moving Pictures.
Yes.
but it has to deliberately pass the exams in such a way in order to keep
I
studying.
don't think Pratchett had considered that.
No, I know.
At the point he was writing Colour
yes,
Magic
but this
like
was
Fantastic.
what we get to do. This is what we
True.
get to do.
Okay.
So
Well, also, it's like the film version or the TV version, so it can be different.
I know, but I just never saw Rincewind as that kind of age. It just...
I mean, the age thing doesn't kind of bother me quite so much. I always kind of picture him a bit scrawnier, but I mean, that's just me. And again, he's very keen on doing the part. And I think he does quite well. I mean, if you think about it, with David Jason, with the long history he has on British television, he's good at physical comedy. He's good at playing the scrumpy old guy. He's also quite good at playing this sort of slightly, like when he was younger, like a slightly more, not quite naive, but sort of character. And his most famous role was Del Boy in Only Fools and Horses. And Rincewind isn't really like that, but there's an element of sort of being cynical in that, and being a bit grumpy, and also being quick to insult his sidekick.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, I mean, I think he can do it. But I can appreciate that it's not perhaps the picture people had, and again, have him already having been cast as Albert, who is literally an ancient wizard.
Yeah.
It's a bit different. But, you know, I think within the thing, it's fine, but I see it's not what everyone pictures.
Well, we'll go on to the next one. So, Sean Astin.
Yes. The, I think, token American?
Yes, so obviously...
Which kind of works.
You can't do the Chinese tourist...
Well, I think we said East Asian when we discussed it.
Yeah, but still,
Colour Magic.
So you couldn't do the...
I mean, I think if you did it carefully, you could do. I mean, there's no reason you couldn't cast an East Asian or like East Asian descended actor in that, but it would perhaps feel uncomfortable, although that was what Pratchett was riffing off of back in the 80s.
Yeah, but I think possibly the American tourist in the 2000s
that does work.
Is more of the...
Yeah, that works. Also, again, just as the cast, he is like practically a baby, being I think the youngest of the ones we're going to discuss. And he does it quite well, because the whole thing is he's playing this very innocent, well-meaning, clean-cut character, which I think, again, being American with a load of Brits around does help in general. But also just having that kind of naivete and good intention. You know, there are quite a few actors who do that well, and I think he does do that very well.
I mean, yes, I mean, he's not... I don't have as much of a problem with him as David Jason.
I didn't have any problem with him.
So, you know, it's all right, you know.
So it was fine. I mean, again, his most famous role in Lord of the Rings, and they do get him to say potato, but he says it potato, which clearly on purpose.
Yeah. No, yeah, why not? You know.
It's like, we've got him, we're going to make him say the thing. Yeah. It was interesting because it was kind of this thing where he was sort of played for laughs, but wasn't like mocking him too much. Yeah. And Rincewind mocks him quite a bit, but there was an element of... He did occasionally stand up for himself, like he's never got grumpy when Rincewind was actually not being very nice to him.
Yeah.
He did notice that much. And the fact that when, you know, he's about to see a human sacrifice and it's like, no, that's not right. He actually goes up and says, no, this isn't right, and then talks someone's ear off. So it's kind of got that naivete, and then also like the thing with him not understanding how much the money is and very earnestly wanting to use it. I think he does that very well, because again, like I say, his most famous role, you know, that's a very earnest character.
Yes.
I know he's done a lot of other things, but that's the one that jumps to mind.
Yeah, well,
which I think also kind of helps the idea of him being... I mean, he's not small, but that's sort of the impression that's given.
Yes.
Because I think, again, it's that kind of little guy thing. It sort of seems like Two Flowers like an odd little guy in a particular way, and I think he does that quite well. So, and also just the enthusiasm he has for things, which again is one of the things that's really great about Two Flowers. Like, you know, Rincewind's fed of everything and afraid of everything and cynical about it, and Two Flowers like, oh, this is amazing, look at this, look at this, look at this. So, and they do have, Cohen say the line about he can see for 50 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Aston embodied that very well.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there are probably various other actors that could do it, but I think he also, you know, he did well with Jason in it, and the other thing, as you say, having an American when everyone else is British, it's like, oh, he already, the accent just makes him seem a bit culturally different anyway. Yeah. And I think that was perfectly good.
Okay, who's next on the list?
I think it's Trimon.
Tim Curry.
Yeah.
Chewing the scenery.
Well, if you want somebody to be, like, you know, villainous and stuff, and also chew the scenery, then...
I mean, Tim Curry is your man, really.
Yeah. It's a very different portrayal to the character. This is one where I feel like the character is quite different to the book.
I think it is...
But I think it calls for a different kind of villain.
Trimon as Tim Curry. It's kind of like Tim Curry's doing his Tim Curry as a wizard.
I guess kind of. I'm just thinking, the other role like that springs to mind is when he played Cardinal Richelieu in the Three Musketeers, which obviously sometime before. which is a similar sort of role, I guess, like the right-hand man to power, who's also all scheming and stuff. But I mean, he does it well. I mean, it's not like he always does the same thing. I think the thing is, in the book, I mean, the wizards are all very backstabby, that's kind of the point of it. And Trimon is very, like, I think he seems being quite a bit younger, which, I mean, I guess he kind of looks... Yeah, I was going to say, it's very yuppie.
Yes. Yeah.
It's corporate and yuppie. They put a bit of the corporate stuff in, like when he takes charge, he makes enough meeting with an agenda, and they're all a bit like, what does agenda do?
Yeah.
Which is an interesting question. But yeah, I think doing it visually, because the thing with Trimon, I think at one point they even say something in Light Fantastic about how he's kind of a bit dull and bland. I think he's got that kind of slightly banality of evil thing. Like the wizards are all evil in a kind of like backstabby way, but he's doing it in this very banal way. But I don't think that works very well in a high fantasy, hijinks, visual medium. So having a guy who's also dressed very, wizardy and is sneaking around and, like, setting up traps to kill people.
Quite ridiculous traps as well.
Yes, but again, it kind of plays into the whole, we're doing a comic fantasy.
Yeah.
It's all a bit silly. That's sort of the vibe. The whole thing with the shoes seemed a bit of a weird literal thing, because the whole thing about, like, was it, like, dead men's pointy shoes?
Yeah.
But then him actually stealing people's actual shoes, it's like, and I think also maybe their hats?
Their hats as well,
And I suppose it was supposed to show him killing his way up the ranks.
Yeah.
In a weirdly short time, but fine. But then Weatherwax sees he's wearing different shoes and hat, and he's like, oh, he's killed this guy. But no one says it, because that's kind of how wizardry works. So that I found a bit overly cartoonish and pantomime. Like, it's all a bit cartoonish and pantomime-y, but that a bit too much. But again, I think it's just kind of creating a visual shorthand of how that works, and kind of, I guess, literalising a joke, which, again, is quite a Discworld thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was always going to... The dead man's pointy shoes was always going to be a different... And the idea of someone just killing so many people off under a short time period, I mean, that's quite ridiculous, You do something about it, anyway... Yeah, I mean, it's Tim Curry being Tim Curry. I mean, it's you get what you get.
And in some respects, him trying to figure out what's happening, like what is the Arch Chancellor worried about, what's to do with Rincewind, it means that it introduces the librarian, it introduces some conversations about how the university is and what the backstory is, and the thing with the spell on the head. Yeah,
it gives you the background information that you need.
Yeah. And also there's that bit where he very dramatically yells Light Fantastic, just to be a bit like, we are also covering this book. It's not in the title, but Tim Curry's just yelled it, so just so we're clear.
Good. Yeah, we're all good. Right, who's next?
Oh, I was going to say, the bit at the end seemed kind of a bit different in how they'd done it, but I think it still worked. Like, he's evil, he's in charge, now he's doing this whole thing for power, and because I think at one point, doesn't the librarian tell him, isn't necessarily this, and he just ignores it. Yeah, so again, he's just making his own assumptions. So the other one we have is Cohen the Barbarian, played by Dave Bradley.
Yes.
Who is also known as Argus Filch in the Harry Potter films, and first Doctor actor William Hartnell in all that Doctor Who stuff that they did around the 50th, 60th anniversary?
One of the recent anniversaries.
He's definitely played William Hartnell in a thing about William Hartnell playing Doctor Who. So he sort of played Doctor Who at a remove.
Yes.
Yes.
I think he stood in for the first Doctor on some of the other...
Oh, no, I suppose that's true. Yes, they have had him play the first Doctor. I mean, the number of people who have played some form of the Doctor now is increasing, which is fair enough, but I think we just need to stop counting it.
Yeah. Anyway, Cohen the Barbarian is just Cohen the Barbarian, I mean, yeah, he does a good job of Cohen, I mean, he must have been cold through most of the filming. Cause
this is the thing. He was the most scantily clad character. And going back to my previous comment about fairly buff-looking older guys.
I mean, his costume is very true to the pictures in the.
It's basically like sort of little shorts. Yeah. So it was a little bit more than a loincloth, but not much. And he's got, sort of like boots that go a bit below his knees, and then he had like bandolier things.
Yeah, various
across
straps
his chest.
Then a fur over the shoulder kind of thing.
Yeah, but so he's just wandering around, old and pale and wiry, and I think that's casting that works quite well with what's in your head.
Yeah, I think that is pretty good casting. I think you can get much closer to what you look.
He was doing the lisp for a while.
Yeah, until he got his dentures. So yeah, I'm quite happy with him as a.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like having an actual person do it with some of the way he sort of talks to Beth initially made me a bit like, oh no.
Yeah, that is true.
Because I'm a bit like, it was already like not great when I was imagining it from reading, but I'm like, oh, now I'm just like seeing a guy doing it. It's like, but they kind of cut that out pretty quickly, and I think also a lot of the Cohen stuff felt like it was from the book. I don't feel like much was like, we said whole chunks of Colour of Magic are just taken out, but Light Fantastic feels a lot more like that whole book, although it's kind of interleaved with some of the Colour Magic stuff initially. But the bit when Cohen turns up is, because it's in the second episode, isn't it?
Pretty much solid in the of Light Fantastic there.
Yeah, and they actually did more than I was expecting for some bits, I mean, we mentioned the shop missing. I don't think there's that thing where he fights with the luggage, but
no.
But other than that, I think most of it's in there. Like all the main bits.
They don't have the bits where they're kind of running around talking about the cultists that have risen up and,
No, but I think they sort of foreshadow those by showing them going to the university and yelling at the wizards and burning stuff. And
you don't have the bits with the dwarf.
Well, I mean, you see him go into a jeweller's that's obviously run by a dwarf, and then he comes out with dentures like that. And I think you're supposed to think he's getting an engagement ring. Yeah. So, but most of it's all good, and he did it really well. Again, I think he's somebody who obviously can do quite good physical acting and does a good being a bit grumpy and cynical, but he wasn't entirely grumpy and cynical. No. So speaking of maybe surprisingly buff older gentlemen, we come to Golda Weatherwax, played by James Cosmo.
Yes, who I think did an excellent job of Weatherwax, and to be honest, I think could make a very good Chancellor Ridley. I think he's got. I think he makes a good. He does make a good.
He makes a good senior wizard.
Yeah.
The whole thing with Trimon keep trying to kill people to get to the Arch-Chancellorship is that he's sneaking around, and most people don't seem too tricky to kill because they don't quite seem to be expecting it. Although,
despite the fact
that seems to be how it works.
Yeah.
Like, we know that from the book, because Brian Cox is the narrator, so quite often he just explains a bit. And they sort of say that's how promotion goes in the university, but you don't sort of see it so much. It does seem a bit like Trimon is particularly ruthless, or, I guess, quick with it. But it's that Trimon keeps trying these sorts of very silly traps.
I mean, they are pretty silly.
That have worked almost immediately on other wizards. And then Weatherwax keeps evading them, but not in a sort of like ha-ha way, just in a sort of like, will that be all, Mr. Trimon? Or, he's just kind of evading them, but not even making a thing of it. Just like, yes, I sidestepped that, so I'm still alive. Please get on with whatever it is I'm telling you to do.
Yeah.
So the thing about him being surprisingly buff is that there's a bit where he's literally forging an arrow, and so then he's also topless, and which I don't know if that's actually what Blacksmith did, but
I doubt it, but
they're not quite objectifying these older gentlemen, but it's just more than one normally sees in things. But yes, he's forging an arrow, so he says that, and yes, he's surprisingly buff, and it's sort of a show of like he's there, he's not even wearing all of his wizard paraphernalia, he's just there, and like, he kind of has a leather apron, and then he removes it, doesn't he? And yes, and in fact, what kills him is that he sends an arrow to get Rincewind, because obviously they're worried about the spell and Rincewind's head and the whole thing with the Octavo, but and then it rebounds on him, but only rebounds on him because of the Octavo activating the change spell, isn't it?
Yes, because it can't find Rincewind when he's fallen off the edge of the world, so it flies back. Yeah,
so it's actually his own spell rebounding through unexpected circumstances. But it also shows, as well as like dodging Trimon, he's also quite good. Like when the change spell happens, he's the one who goes right up to the Great Hall, up to the Tower of Art, and says it's a change spell. He's the one that seems to know what's happening. He's the one who speaks to Rincewind originally and points out that he's not very good and kind of kicks him out of the university. Which
I part wonder whether that was Trimon kind of on the shoulder, kind of little bit, not realising.
The point is, the spell's been in his head so long, and he's been around so long, they kind of forget, oh, he's that student that did this.
Yeah.
And it's only like later, because the librarian's one that knows it. But he did a really good job. I mean, the bit where Trimon like throws a knife at him, and then he like uses magic, but like not casting a spell. Like, there's a lot of big gestures. There's a lot of big gestures. There's a lot of slightly sparkly effects, which we'll get to. But he doesn't even. He threw a knife at him. He catches like the knife starts circling his neck in midair, going round and round like it's a weird ruff or something.
Yeah.
And he just stands there, very clearly like, you just tried to assassinate me. I'm not going to mention it. I'm going to continue with my job. So that's quite cool. But he was good.
Yeah, no, I think he was.
And then I think other casting stuff, the crowd scenes, Ankh-Morpork scenes, that sort of stuff, they had quite a good gender balance, although probably not very racially diverse. And then there were various women who were playing Liessa in the Wurmberg, Helena in the bit where they're being hunted down, they find the big troll, Marchesa in Kroll, And then obviously Bethan, who gets rescued from the human sacrifice, who's kind of the main one, who's the major character. They're all doing quite well. And as I say, there are various men who are more scantily clad than the women, so that's a refreshing change.
Yes, well, especially given that the Lias was supposed to be pretty undressed.
Yeah, I think they just made something that would actually be comfortable for an actual person to wear. But yes, the background mooks in that bit with her, those gents weren't wearing much, so, fair enough. Though we have the thing where obviously the librarian's in it pre-magical accidents, because we actually see him be turned into an orangutan by the change spell, which seems like a weird point, really, because when you think about it, it's changing the whole disc to, well, in the books it's changing the disc so that Rincewind and Two Flower fine. In this it's actually moving the turtle so that he catches them. Yeah. They have not established the gender of the turtle.
No.
Although I do like the bit where they're a bit like, it's a bit weird to be worried about the gender of the turtle. It's like, it is a bit weird. What's up with you guys, Kroll?
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's weird, because actually that's not so much a change spell as it is a movement spell.
Yes.
And why would that make a person an orangutan? Anyway, let's not worry. The point is, it's very weird seeing the librarian as a human.
Especially when
why is he a person?
Especially when they made him look like an orangutan.
Well, kind of. I guess it was
very, it was obviously
they made him look a bit apish.
Yeah, and I kind of...
Well, okay, I said that. Like, we're all apes. More apish.
More apish, which, it's kind of like, okay, didn't quite need to be hit over the head quite so heavily with that one.
Oh, well, I didn't mind that. It was just weird that he was a human. It's like, oh. And then obviously, when they have the guy then be an orangutan, I mean, they've done what they can with the makeup and stuff, but he also has, like, obviously human-length arms.
Yes.
And then he's climbing at one point. It's like, well, that's how a person would move. Or a human. Yes. Not saying orangutans aren't people. That's a different question. Well, the same guy that played the librarian also played the luggage, which was fine, where he was largely a moving box. But he did that well.
We get to it. I think the other brief mention it. Jeremy Irons as the patrician.
Oh yes, of course. Yes.
Not specified which patrician, just the patrician.
He does do a good line in being kind of sinister and menacing.
I mean, that's pretty much his thing.
He also had a tiny little dog.
He did have Mr. Waffles.
On his arm. He's just called Waffles.
Okay. He had Waffles.
But when you say that, though, I feel like Waffles is like a West Highland Terrier, and that was a different kind of dog. And also clearly a puppy, not an old one. But it doesn't really matter, because it was like, oh, the tiny dog is sleeping.
Yes.
And occasionally the tiny dog would lift its head up. And it's like, oh. And I think I was supposed to like undercut him being a bit... Because there's one point where he actually fusses it slightly. But yes, but he did quite well at the sort of, I am very powerful and cross sort of stern thing, which we know Jeremy Irons can do. And it's just a bit like, oh, look, it's Jeremy Irons.
I mean, he could quite easily just be veterinary.
Although, I mean, other people have also done that part well. Yeah. But yes.
Who else? I think that's...
That's all the people who've written down.
Yeah. Lots of various, small bits and that.
So, did we want to move on to the visual effects, as we sort of referenced them a little bit?
Yes.
I mean, one of the things is that as visual effects improve, you can do more fantasy on TV and film, but largely TV.
Yes.
Because the budget stuff there is different. But obviously fantasy quite often requires a lot of makeup and effects and things.
I mean, I think we've got to think, this is 2008 TV budget, so it's...
I mean, it's Sky, not BBC.
Yeah, but still, it's not a... They haven't got millions to be throwing at it. Well, they would have been millions, but not that many millions to make it. So, and I think with the advantage of the Discworld, certainly the disc that's portrayed in the first few books is that actually it's mostly humans.
Yeah, well, one thing I noticed actually was in a bit in the Mended Drum, where in the book somebody has trolls as heavies. In this, they had dwarves as heavies, because then you just cast some gents of dwarfism.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess trolls require more makeup. But I mean, various characters. Okay, if we talk about makeup, various characters who were... It's not even makeup. So, like, obviously Death appears in it.
I think Death is a physical effect.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it's a guy wearing a death
mask. I think that's quite...
So Death mask is also a thing.
Yeah, I think they might have CGI'd his eyes a bit, but otherwise...
Well, it's the same setup they used in Hogfather as well.
But I think it works well for it. Yes, it looks a bit like a mask, but on the other hand...
He's not super facial expressive. That's kind of the point.
It's also not a realistic skull.
No.
So...
Realistic skull would be smaller and probably like more distressing.
Yes, so I think it works. You've got it for the character.
It's also kind of cool that it's voiced by Christopher Lee, who obviously also played Death in the cartoons, which we may well discuss at some point.
Yes,
and because I watched the Salt Music cartoon quite a lot as a child. But
so yes, I think Death as a primarily physical effect.
With the voice of Christopher Lee.
Yeah, There is a actor reference credited on IMDb for playing the physical.
Oh yeah. Well, it's kind of like the Darth Vader thing, isn't it? One guy's
but-
doing the physical, one guy's doing the voice.
So it's and talking briefly of death. This is the death character. One of the changes they made. Well, it's not death at the I'm an arsehole character that we had in the.
Yes, he does some of the same things as in Colour of Magic and Light Fantastic, but yeah, he doesn't seem to be actively hunting Rincewind down. So he keeps kind of appearing and maybe slightly taunting Rincewind, and he seems a bit disappointed when Rincewind doesn't die, but he doesn't seem to be like quite such a jerk.
Yeah, I mean, like when Rincewind gets rescued from the wolves, at that point he's supposed to kill a bunch of midges.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
In the book he kills a bunch of midges because he's annoyed that Rincewind got away. In the show, it's like. He's just like, oh, I've just had a near Rincewind experience,
which is just the joke, isn't it?
And that's kind of like,
which I think might be from one of the other Rincewind books. Thinking about it, but I can't remember.
But it's not. You say it's not death. The I'm an arse trying to kill somebody or wishing someone's death.
Yeah.
I mean, the closest we get is him handing the lighted splint to the innkeeper, which is a bit of a joke.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, he could have just waited for the innkeeper to finally light the match himself, really.
So it's Death Works. The librarian, as we've mentioned, it's not the guy's fault. He is a human, but then he looked like a human. So, but I guess because we'd already seen the guy as a human, and then they put like orangutan kind of like mask and makeup on him.
It's I think that one. It's a mostly physical effect again. It's not a CGI effect.
Yeah.
It's again costing, but I don't think it works as well. We
kind of know what an orangutan looks like.
Yeah, it is more like we've taken this person and made them look a bit more orangutan-y than this is an orangutan. And I think
it would have probably been very expensive to get an orangutan. I don't know if you're allowed to do that anymore.
No.
Probably.
But it's so of all the effects, I felt that the librarian one didn't quite hit as high.
But the luggage, which was the same guy, that was fine because when it first appeared, because obviously it's being carried around as a crate at various points and it opens up and you can see there's gold or there's stuff in there. But then the first time it appears and it lifts up and then the legs are going. There's quite a lot of legs, and those are obviously CG'd in.
Yeah.
And then other times they perhaps don't show the like you can see the luggage moving, and I mean the kind of like bumpy, kind of like walking along kind of motion is very clear because there's quite a few shots of the luggage just running across landscape as it's trying to find Two Flower, so that works quite well. And it doesn't always show like the bottom, or it's sort of shown in such a way that kind of like the legs would be in shadow a bit. So I
think they'd looked at it and went, how can we? It was always if you saw the legs, it was usually something's obscuring it, or it was in the middle distance, or It wasn't very close to the viewer.
And considering Pratchett says that the origin of the luggage was him seeing somebody dragging a suitcase on wheels, which I think we have to remember were much less common in the 80s. Like that was quite an unusual thing to have. But some sort of suitcase or bag on wheels around and it kind of jerking all over the place like it had life of its own. I feel like that actually feels quite consistent with what we got on screen.
Yeah, no, I think it was a very sensible choice to make it more physical. I think these days they would have possibly gone for a more CG effect on it, which might not work. It might not work so well.
So, I mean, some of the effects is there's various bits where there's like magic doing stuff, in which
very low key effects. I feel.
I mean, it's just a bit like, oh, here's some sparkles, or here's some light shooting around. I mean, they don't really kind of go into the dungeon dimension stuff so much. Just kind of go into something's gone into Tri-Men. Like the wizards that turn to stone. That's all. Like we don't see that happen. There are just a load of like weird looking statues. That's obviously a practical effect. But yes, at one point Tri-Men's eyes are glowing, but just for a moment, and then they're like, "Oh, we stopped this now," and it's just his eyes. I'm like, you could have put contact lenses on him, but all right.
Yeah. I mean, because they don't really. Yes, they say, "Oh, demons and things," but they don't. You don't ever see anything.
It's just kind of the sky looks a funny colour. Well, when the star's there and it makes things red, they've obviously put a red filter on things, which works quite well. There's one bit, though, with the big troll. So the big troll was the other CG effect.
Oh, yes, that was the big one.
And there's that bit where it's supposed to be nighttime, and you're looking at it, and, okay, like it's TV, and nighttime is very light, just like any scene in a nightclub is very light, and you're like, okay, so we can see things. But it was so light that I was a bit like, is it supposed to be nighttime? And then they showed the sun coming up, and then they kind of had a more yellowish light coming through. And you're like, oh, okay. I'm like, but it didn't really look dark enough before that. It's like, this just looks like, well, I mean, we're recording this in December. It just looks like outside does. Like right now, here in Britain.
Yeah. I think
we had 3 days of cloud this week.
I mean, unless it was a very full moon.
No, it didn't even look like that, though.
No, but it was pretty.
It was a bit like, it is perfectly light, just maybe slightly gloomy.
Yeah.
Oh, now the sun has come out. I would say it's happened recently, but it's not. Well, no, it was sunny today, but earlier this week it was just grey for days.
No, I think it's a... Yeah, that, I mean, the troll itself...
yeah.
The troll itself was alright. I mean, it's very low screen time.
Yeah,
you know,
they don't go into the whole troll thing very much. That's another thing they took out. It's just a bit like, there's a big troll around here. Oops, we're in its mouth.
Yeah.
Which is mostly to get away from Helena and those guys.
It's a big pile of rocks. It was alright.
And then it moved.
Yeah.
And it was angry.
I think that one, again, it wasn't amazing, but again, it did the job. It had very little screen time, so I don't think it needed to be anything much more.
And then, I suppose the other stuff to mention is the kind of whole screen animation, which is largely the view of Gracie Tuin, the elephants of Discworld, and then also the Red Star and the baby world turtles and the baby elephants.
Yes.
And I noticed that they had a bit where some of the elephants on the back of Greater Tuin are like waving their trunks at the little ones.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought those were pretty well done. I think that's where the budget for the special effects went. I think they put a lot of money into making that look good, which I think paid off. I think it stands up. It's not wow amazing, but it's certainly not, oh dear God, that, I've seen better on. It
definitely looked like the Discworld, and also because there's a bit where they show the baby turtles hatching out, and then the people I say on the ground, they're in the Tower of Art, but on the disc are looking, and you can see it in the sky, and I thought that was alright. Like, it didn't just look like it was on the screen they were watching.
Yeah.
And that was quite nice, I thought. Rather than having the weird... I mean, and again, it's because it's between the books, where perhaps just like, suddenly they were fine on the disc. They actually have the turtle move.
Yes.
Because the turtle moves.
The turtle does move.
They sort of showed that all right.
Yeah. That's sort of... In fact, perhaps the less good bits of that was the CG of David Jason in the Chalonaut suit. Kind of go... I think that possibly let it down a little bit more than anything else. So the real person in the CG effect was the weak point. Yeah, I suppose, yeah. I mean, I will say that a lot of the sets and costume stuff was pretty good. I mean, obviously, Ankh-Morpork, you just need some old-looking bits for City. Yeah.
But, at Kroll, I think they did okay. The ship, the way they built that was pretty good. So, I mean, they'd obviously spent a bit on that sort of thing. And they had a real actual boat that Two-Fire arrives on a river. I don't know which city that was. And they'd made it look they'd done that kind of like, we've made it look historical sort of background thing. But it looked fairly bustling and didn't look immediately like everything was covered in mud and drudgery, which there's stuff to be said about that in historical stuff, but we don't have to go into that.
Yeah, I think that, generally the effects were good and it represented a reasonable representation of what we might have imagined.
Yeah, and they obviously used various, again, the landscapes. It wasn't all just like we're fighting a monster in a quarry. They had woodland, they had fields.
Yeah, they were sensible with where they wanted their budget to go with the effects. They obviously they didn't throw a lot of it at things that really didn't matter as much, and kept it for the things that did. So that's our thoughts on the Colour of Magic miniseries. I think in general we enjoyed it, even if we were picking holes in it, but that's kind of what we do.
Well, not always, but yeah.
Tell us what you thought of it. Our email address is diningtablediscworld@gmail.com. So drop us a message. Tell us what you thought of it. Have you seen it? If not, it's available on Amazon. And we hope that people have a happy Christmas if you celebrate, or just kind of December is treating you all right. A happy festive period. Happy Hogs Watch. That'll be. We'll get to that later. Yeah, but probably in summer. Yeah, and a fabulous new year. And happy year of the luminous lemur, as decided by, is it Discworld? Discworld. The Terry Pratchett Estate has decided that 2025 will be the year of the luminous lemur. So enjoy. Thank you very much for listening. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Dining Table Discworld. You can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Dining Table Discworld. You can also find us on BlueSky at dtdiscworld. All our other contact information and credits for our music can be found in our show notes. Thank you for listening again, and we'll see you in our next episode.